Welcome to day 2 of the Everywhere Book Fest, and we are coming to you live from, a variety of places actually. I'm very happy to be here with a couple of my fellow authors on the debut list from the brand new publishing house Levine Corrido, founded by legendary editor and noted bacon enthusiast Arthur A. Levine. My name is Mike Jung. I am the author of this book, The Boys in the Back Row, which is arriving on October 6th. I have the honor and the pleasure of serving as both a panelist and your moderator today. And so let's have everybody introduce themselves. Donna, would you care to go next?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Donna Higuera, and I am in the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Seattle. And this is my book, LUPE Wong, getting a little glare, comes out September 9th. LUPE Wong Won't Dance.
Okay, and Daniel, please tell us about your extraordinary book.
Hi, well, thank you. My name is Daniel Nayeri. I'm in the Jersey City area. I can't frame this book because I'm terrible at this. It's called Everything SAD Is Untrue.
Okay, and I should say I'm coming from Oakland, California, and my cat is right here, but he's not on camera. We are going to do just take a few minutes to do a Q&A at the end of this panel, which ends at 8:30 this morning Pacific, 11:30 Eastern. So if you have questions, feel free to send them to us either by commenting on the YouTube video, if that's where you're watching it, or on Facebook Live. And we can be seen in a variety of places on the EBF website, on the EBF YouTube channel, or on the Facebook Live. So please plug in your questions, and they will be funneled to us by our fabulous moderator, Paula Chase. I understand is moderating for us today. So the name of this panel is I Am My Own Hero. And I think that our panelists would agree that that's there's a lot of different valid ways to interpret that. So I thought maybe we could just talk about how does that theme of our characters becoming their own heroes, how does that work in each of your books? Daniel, you want to start?
Sure, although I'm going to be a contrarian.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of ways to interpret it. I was sitting here this morning and I was like, oh shoot! I think most of the ways I interpret it are well, I guess the best way to put it. I was talking to a friend, Meredith Barnes. She's a great publishing mind, and I was sitting there and I was like, hey, I'm going to be on this panel, and I was like, I don't know how to interpret it, and she was like, yeah, it sounds like something the villain in the story would say. I was like, oh shoot, you're right. She's not wrong. I think there's definitely and this is of course the self-obsessive way of interpreting it. So I think there's a lot of good ways to interpret it. There's a lot of ways to say you want you're frankly in this instance you want to see a lot of different faces as the protagonist of the story, which is sort of another way of saying the hero of the story, right?
Right.
But in the sentence, I am the hero of my own story, I was trying to apply it to the book, which is the book I'd been working on, Everything SAD Is Untrue. And interestingly, he begins by thinking that, and then sort of begins to realize that sort of like the rugged individualism, the way of thinking that, my shoulders are strong enough to carry this whole thing, just isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I ended up interpreting it that way. I would, but I know there's a lot of other ways to do that. Donna, I imagine you maybe had a different take or possibly similar.
Yeah, Donna, could you, Lupe is a fabulous character. I just love her to pieces. And so, how do you apply that idea to her and her journey throughout your book?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right, Don. So Donna's figuring out a little bit of situation with the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I heard you there.
Hopefully I don't cut out again. But so with Lupe, I mean, she's a funny character. And I think of, when a lot of us were children, I equate it back to that saying. It's l'esprit d'escalier. I don't speak French, but it's the spirit of the stairwell. Do you know this saying? How you wish there's like if you're in an argument or you're discussing something with someone and you know, you out of anger or whatever, you leave and you get in the stairwell and then you're like, oh, I wish I would have said that. Well, Lupe just says it. And most of the time it's with humor and you're cringing while she's doing it, going, oh my gosh, please don't do that. Please don't do that. And then she does it. But as far as a hero goes, I mean, she kind of starts out, she's a little selfish. And so I think part of her character arc is that the reasons and her motives behind why she does a lot of these things starts out selfish. And by the end of the book, you kind of go, okay, she's growing and learning that, you know, these things are sometimes about doing the right thing and about friendship and otherwise. But just the whole, throughout the book, it just a series of disasters ensues because a lot of times her motives are not great. And so she says and does the wrong thing. But by the end, she kind of makes up for it.
Yeah, she's a fabulous character, and I think with boys, you know, my main character is named Matt Park, and the idea of the book is that he and his best friend Eric are going to be separated at the end of the year because Eric is moving out of town, and so these are boys who like are best friends and love each other, and they're affectionate and they're emotionally vulnerable, and they live in American society, which means they live in a society that does not want them to be affectionate and loving and vulnerable. And so the idea of I took a very sort of broad interpretation of the idea of being your own hero, although I really like Daniel's contrarian stance. That was some quality contradiction there. And I was thinking of it in terms of like Matt is a boy who is really trying hard to just be the person that he is, despite living in a world that doesn't want him to be so much. And so the idea of being his own hero is just him trying to maintain his sense of self and continue to grow into the person he wants to be, as opposed to growing into the kind of person that society is channeling him into, because he is by nature diametrically opposed to sort of the forces of toxic masculinity in American society, and so he's fighting against that. And I feel like that not with like ideals of masculinity so much, but that idea of fighting to become the person that you are and want to be is kind of a common thread through all three of our books. Would you agree? Yeah, and the circumstances are different, but you know, Daniel, your main character, who's you kind of takes a very eventful journey, I would say, through the course of your book, and you know, your book is explicitly, you know, autobiographical in nature, and mine is not, and Donna's is not. But I also feel like there is I have this sense that there's some deep autobiographical content in all three of our books. So maybe we could discuss that a little bit, Daniel, and like go, man, because your book is right there. It's
sure. So yeah, I mean, you guys saw it, right? I don't need to hold it up. It is explicitly autobiographical. A True Story is the subtitle. And yeah, so it begins. It's, you know, for a long time I used to call it you know, this sort of epic of 4 generations in my family. But it begins at this moment when I came to the United States at the age of 8. We were refugees from Iran, and my father chose to stay in Iran. My mother had a fatwa on her head, which is a colloquial way. It's a, you know, short way of saying like the government was trying to kill her. So my favorite thing about that when I was a kid was the spook story of my childhood was, of course, the Iranian secret police, right? Those were the bad guys in all my nightmares. And their name is the most comic booky, terrifying name in the world, because these are sort of, you know, these are bad dudes. These are individuals who captured my mom, threw her into a van, and interrogated her, but they call themselves the Committee. It's just, and I just love that. I love how like simple that name is, but it's terrifying. If you ever, it's in Farsi, it's the Comité. Anyway, so we had a fatwa on our head. And we had to escape from Iran, and after that, we're refugees for several years. We were first in the UAE, and then in a refugee camp in Italy, and then finally got asylum to come to the United States in Oklahoma, which is an unlikely place, but a great place to hide. And so it opens in that classroom where the kid, the main character, myself, is standing in front of a bunch of kids trying to like explain it all. And the dynamic is, the dynamic opens with like him trying to explain his memories, right? It sort of goes like, the first memory I have, and this is true, the very first and only memory I have of my grandfather is his hands bloody from having sacrificed a bull for me, right? It's this really difficult scene, and I'm like, and he lived in this amazing house in this area in Kurdistan, Iran, where we owned the land because his great-great-grandfather had diagnosed a princess of Hindustan with schizophrenia, and so her father had, which was the Shah, had given him his weight in gold. None of this sounds at all plausible, especially if it's like the poor kid who sits in the back of your class in Oklahoma. Definitely that's not his backstory. So it's sort of dealing with that dynamic of everyone just thinks he's lying all the time, and it goes from there. So yeah, it's it follows pretty much my life. Some names were changed to protect the difficult.
Yeah, and it's such an extraordinarily rich and layered story. I mean, I feel like you could read it 100 times and get a whole new layer of meaning every single time. And then Donna, this was, I should say, I'm not going to take credit for this question. This question was actually Donna's suggestion. So I feel like, Donna, you've got something to talk about in terms of any autobiographical aspects of Lupe Wong.
Well, yeah, but I actually want to know because I want to know what it was for you. But again, selfish. But Lupe kind of came out of both my experience and my daughter's. My younger daughter came home from school and was upset because she was going to have to square dance in PE. And we're sitting around the dinner table and she's telling us, well, it's no big deal because I'm going to dance with Gracie. And then my older daughter said, you can't dance with Gracie. You have to dance with the boy. And she's like, what? And, you have to hold hands. And not only do you have to do that, you have to say yes to the boy who asks you. So that kind of got me thinking about my experience with square dancing. And the story isn't just about square dancing, because as I started writing it experiences from your life come up. And there were a lot of things that happen in the book that actually happened to me. And I was the kid who, if someone either said something to me that was confrontational, I would walk away. And Lupe doesn't do that. So I think a lot of that book is in the spirit of the stairwell. I put Lupe in those same situations that I was in, but she reacts in the way maybe now I wish I had. And so, yeah, of course it's fictional, but most of the situations in the book happen.
Okay, yeah, I feel that so hard, Donna, because that is similar to what I did with my book. Boys, I'm gonna hold up the cover once again because I think I went like this the last time. But hey, there's the cover again. It's not an autobiographical story. It is fiction, but it's very autobiographically inspired because the way it came about is that I'd been kicking around this idea of doing like a marching band book for a number of years without doing any work, and then Arthur, our mutual publisher, suggested it to me one day, saying, you should write a marching band book. And I said, oh, I've been thinking about writing a marching band book. And a lot of the events in Boys, because it's about Matt and Eric, these two best friends. They are not just in the marching band together, but they are major comic book fans. And so what's going to happen is that, knowing that Eric is moving away at the end of the year, they plan an escapade where the marching band is going to an out-of-state competition. And on the last day of that trip, they are going to go AWOL and go to a nearby comic book convention to meet their famous, their favorite comic book creator, right? And then hijinks ensue, and then things go wrong, etc. And a lot of the events are drawn very directly from one of my high school friendships. So I had to age it down, for middle grade. But in high school, I was friends with a drummer, a guy by the name of Chris Iliopoulos, and we did a lot of these things together. We were both big comic book fans. We would go to each other's houses with sketch pads and just draw pictures of Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four all afternoon. And like Matt in the book, I was the first, I believe, the first male flute player in the history of my high school. And so I left the flute section one year to play bass drum, just so that Chris and I could hang out more during the course of his last year at school, which is actually what Matt and Eric do in the book. And where was I going with that? Oh, so Chris, as it turns out, we lost touch for a long time, for about 30 years. And then it was 3 or 4 years ago, I saw on Twitter that a mutual friend of ours who was a trumpet player in the marching band had passed away, and too young, you know, and I was seeing him make tweet comments about how she was one of the people who really helped him survive high school. And we hadn't communicated in 30 years, but I thought, why not, you know, if not now, when? And so I tweeted at him and said the same thing, like, you know, you were one of those people for me. I got through high school partly because of you. And so we rekindled our friendship in this very great way. And it turns out that he actually, after college, went and got a job at Marvel Comics and has actually been in the comics industry for that entire 30-year span. And now he illustrates children's books. He's done a whole series of books with Brad Meltzer. He has a couple of graphic novels of his own out. So now we're in the same industry together, which is great. But yeah, a lot of the things that happen in that book are things that actually happened to us in high school. But like Lupe for you, Donna, Matt is sort of he's a surrogate for me in some ways, where he goes through some of the same situations, has some of the same experiences that I did, but responds in a way that maybe I wish I had more. You know, he's in some ways a stronger, you know, a more upstanding, more internally, quote, self-heroic character than I was back then. So there's a little bit of, you know, like wish fulfillment going on in writing this book. Yeah. I don't know about the two of you. I'm guessing you feel the same. Like, we're on the ground floor of this brand new publishing venture with Arthur and Nick and Megan and such a great group of people. I feel like it's despite everything that's going on in the larger world around us, I feel like this is a really exciting thing. Do you feel the same? Do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that just when I heard word that, you know, this was happening, it was, you know, instantly, I'm like, I'm on board. This is great. So, and this is exciting. I mean, and of course, when the advanced reading copies came in, and they're just beautiful, and it's just indicative, I think, of kind of the direction that the publishing house is going in. It's, you know, it's a little bit of tooting our own horn, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm.
And Daniel, were already kind of a big deal in the publishing world, you know, by the time this you know, Arthur's new venture came along. But I know that you also were excited and are excited now.
Oh yeah, I was over the moon. So yeah, my day job is I'm the publisher of an imprint at Macmillan Children's Publishing. We're called Odd Dot, and so the joke I sort of always make is I know just enough about Arthur's job to know how good he is at it, and I can go into the weeds on some of the stuff that he's been able to pull off. But I mean, you know, people know him as, of course, like, this dude edited Philip Pullman, Harry Potter, and my favorite, Shantan, right? Like, he's edited the geniuses, but even behind the scenes, the little stuff, first of all, the team, Antonio, Alex Hernandez, some of the brilliant people there, Nick, of course. But it's also the little stuff, you know, pairing with Chronicle. I get very technical really fast, so I'll spare you. But it's such a cool project, and larger than that, it's such a cool movement that he's he's a big figure, and he's, you know, that's the thing, going back to the title, like, he's the hero of a lot of this story, you know. I love that. This is, for me anyway, like, my book is big, man. It's big. It's funny, but it's also like, it's not I wouldn't say it's my company wouldn't have been able to pick it up. We do very different kinds of books, you know. So it's like, it's very clearly like, it's a really specific kind of thing. And And here you have Arthur, who's like, yeah, I'm going to champion it. I'm going to get behind it. That's a heroic thing to do. That's some, you know, lifting someone up. Of course, he's doing the same with you guys. He's lifting up your stories. I think that's really amazing. That's it. I keep thinking about this topic. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm the hero of my own story means I have the obligations of the hero in the story. Meaning I'm obligated to behave heroically, right? And you know, Mike, you were saying if in yours that can mean I'm obligated to be true,
right?
To myself in this case. And Donna, I'm obligated to like strike down all these sort of, you alluded to, like saying yes to the way, these kind of convention. You know, convention that in this case is sort of accrued to be wrong. I like that. I like I have the obligations of the Superman in the story, or the, you know, Spider-Man, whatever. But yeah, I'll take that. I'll totally take that. I think that's the right move. The part where I was reading was, you know, and sometimes the characters accidentally mistakes it for I have the what is the word? The position. I have the power. I have the interestingness of the hero in the story. Everyone should pay attention. That gets me down the path of like, oh yeah, the villain says that. But yeah, but I like I am obligated. That's
obligation,
good.
Responsibility. You know, with great power comes great responsibility.
There you go.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's fabulous. Okay, so let's do the Q&A real quick. We have a few questions coming in, so let's get some of those fed to us. I see that there's at least 4, and we probably won't get to all of those, but we'll do our best. So, how about feeding us a question, technology, EBF technology team? Yes, we are ready. So we have on the screen. Oh, there it is. In all of your books, there are elements of adversity that your protagonists must overcome. What are your thoughts on the idea that adversity makes us stronger? Is this always the case? Well, interesting. Good question. Do you want to take a swing at that one first, Donna? He said, avoiding the responsibility of doing so himself.
Sure. Let's see. The question disappeared.
Does adversity make us stronger?
Okay.
Is that always true?
Oh, that is a great question, because I do think adversity makes us stronger 98% of the time. I think that there are some times where a person is already strong, and there are situations, for instance, in my book where Lupe is pretty strong-minded anyway, and there's a certain point where adversity just beats someone down, and it doesn't necessarily make them stronger. They already might have a strong will, and I'm like jumping into Daniel's book because it totally makes me think like there's a certain point where there's a lot of strong people, and they don't need more adversity, and it doesn't necessarily make them stronger. But the same, going to Lupe, I do think that part of her character arc was that she needed to have some adversity. She need, sometimes the school of hard knocks is the way to go. And for her, she needed to grow a little bit as a character. But sometimes adversity is a good thing, but not always.
Yeah, I would have to say I agree that, I'm also jumping into Daniel's book because it's so much there. But looking, for example, at Daniel's mother, it's like an immensely, incredibly strong character who had already proven it pretty quickly in the first few pages of the book. You didn't need any more examples of her becoming stronger. She was that way from the start. But I do think that my characters go through adversity on a sort of emotional level, and I think yes, that it often makes you stronger. I think sometimes it can be traumatic and just hurtful, and you just get past it is sometimes what happens. Yeah. And so, Daniel, what were your thoughts about that?
Oh, you guys said it best. I think, so in my case, my mom is the hero of that story. So, right. It's the characters watching that kind of strength. But I guess I have baseball on the brain. I've been reading Donna's book too. And, it reminds me of that quote from Cal Ripken Sr. that's like, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And it's like, well, yeah, sometimes adversity is just a hammer. And then other times it's a good workout, but we'll see.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Can you feed us another one? All right, so from Lynn Winter Latchman. Hey, Lynn. Lynn has a fun question. Your protagonists are in a quarantine house together. What are they doing? What are they doing? I would say that Matt has definitely got a supply of comic books and is looking a lot of stuff up on the internet and about his favorite superhero, who is called Sandpiper. And there's this, in the book, it's fictional. There's an online sort of discussion venue called the Sandpiper Network, where all of the big Sandpiper fans get together and have just horrible flame war arguments about her. So that's one of the things he's doing. What about Lupe, Donna?
Well, I think that first of all, she would probably try to harangue Matt into playing ball with her, and Kustru, I don't know if I'm saying it right, or Daniel. She would be trying to. She's a manipulator a bit, and she would be trying to get them to play ball with her, do what she wanted, and yeah, she'd enjoy the friendship, but she would be trying to make them. Oh my gosh, she would probably be making them do puzzles and play her games. And yeah.
As a true little brother, Daniel would probably be falling for that. And 100% like dealing with the pull of trying to please both of them at once. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take maybe just one more question, one or two more. We can handle at least one more. So from Jessica Walsh, what are your favorite childhood hero stories? So what about it? How about it, Daniel? What were your favorite childhood hero stories? I mean, there's a bunch of them in the book. So.
Yeah. I use this example a lot because I really believe we've in the middle grade world, we got this rule of thumb that I really disagree with, which is that the protagonist of the story has to be the same age as the reader. We think that sometimes. And I look back when I was a kid, the heroes I loved were across the board grown men, because I was obsessed with figuring out what that was like. And so it was Doc Holliday, Michael Jordan, Wolverine from the comics, Batman, you name it, Wyatt Earp. They were all a particular kind of, Oklahoma specific, I admit, grown men. And I was really obsessed with trying to figure out what that was like. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, that's what I really would have wanted. I read a lot of comics. I read a lot of Lord of the Rings. So I was really obsessed with what that would look like. Yeah. So those are the heroes. Michael Jordan documentary is so good, but I've been watching. He was the greatest. All right.
Yeah, we could go on about Michael, but
yeah, enough about that.
So Donna, how about you?
So, oh my gosh, what a loaded question, because there's so many and from different facets. But I was a huge Star Trek fan. My nerd is showing. I love Star Trek, and I loved, kind of how they would experience what I would deem other cultures, but other planetary cultures, and how they would handle that. But, my other hero, and I think it resonated, Daniel's mom resonated with me a lot, was my grandmother. She had come from kind of a rough background, and, didn't even make it through junior high, and worked and just made this life for herself. And so she was kind of my hero. I looked up to her a lot. But then also I loved like superheroes, like the Wonder Twins. I don't know why I love the Wonder Twins, but like those kinds of, I think we all find heroes in different places. But I think with like the Wonder Twins, I'm like, oh, they're kind of my age. They, they make mistakes compared to like Wonder Woman and Superman. But yeah, I don't know. I think I found a lot of my heroes in real people in my life.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to just make a final, this will be our last thing, and then we got to wrap. But like Daniel, like you, I had all those same sort of pop culture heroes, all the superheroes. Wolverine has always been the greatest.
Number one.
Yeah. I read the Lord of the Rings, and anyone who looks at my Star Wars at my Twitter feed will realize I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan and continue to be, and a Star Trek fan. I reach across the aisle that way. But the one specific hero I want to talk about is actually that stands out a little bit, is that I was a big fan of Anne McCaffrey's Harper Hall books, which were, she writes all these books about dragons, The Dragon Riders of Pern. But Harper Hall was about a teenage girl who breaks out and who eventually runs away from her repressive, closed-minded thinking community because she's a musician living in a society where girls aren't allowed to be musicians, and where musicians actually play this incredibly important role in society. And she manages to break away from this patriarchal society that she belonged to, and to actually find a way to do that. And so that was really one of the formative books, formative series of books from my childhood that I actually go back and reread every few years, just because, just to kind of restore that feeling of wonder I felt when I first read it, where I thought, like, this is a different kind of hero. This is actually a kind of hero where, like, I'm not going to be the guy with the sword or with the blaster rifle. The person who can be sort of heroic, again, using a very loose interpretation of the word, in a way that uses emotion and expression and creativity. That's the road that I'm going to go down. And so, okay, so we are at the end of our time. I would like to say thank you so much to Brian Truitt, who is our
Thank you, Brian,
our ASL interpreter, and who I understand has acquired quite a large fan following amongst the viewers of the EBF. So it's an honor to be here with you, Brian, and thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all three of our fabulous panelists. I'm going to arrogantly include myself. But Donna Barba Higuera, whose book "Lupe Wong Won't Dance" is wonderful and has all sorts of depth and meaning that apply to all of us today. And Daniel Nayeri, whose book "Everything SAD Is Untrue" is a tour de force, a book that absolutely everyone must pick up and read. And my name is Mike Jung. My book is called The Boys in the Back Row. Thank you so much. Please continue to watch the rest of the panels and events here at the Everywhere Book Fest, because there's some fabulous people and there's some fabulous events going on. And we want to thank everybody involved with the festival for hosting us today. So thanks and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.